Imagine archaeologists opening a tomb that had remained sealed for nearly 3,000 years. Inside lay the body of a man buried with unusual treasures: a beautifully crafted harp, horse bridles, fine clothing, and beside him, a large bundle of cannabis, carefully placed before the grave was closed forever. The people who buried him believed he would need it in the next world. Think about that for a second. Long before countries argued over cannabis, long before governments banned it, long before anyone had ever heard the word marijuana, someone loved this man enough to make sure he wouldn't spend eternity without the plant. But here's the real mystery. That wasn't the beginning of the story. It wasn't even close. Because the relationship between humans and cannabis stretches back so far that it reaches into a world before written language, before great civilizations, and before history itself. How did one wild plant survive the rise and fall of kingdoms, cross deserts, mountains, and oceans, become medicine, religion, industry, and controversy, yet somehow remain one of the most misunderstood plants on Earth? To answer that question, we have to travel back nearly 12,000 years. A time when humanity was changing forever. The Ice Age was ending. The massive glaciers that had covered much of the planet were retreating. Animals followed new migration routes. Forests expanded. Rivers changed course. For the first time, many groups of humans began settling in one place instead of constantly following food. It was the birth of farming. No one knew which plants were worth growing. People experimented with hundreds of wild species. Some produced tiny harvests. Others died too easily. Many were poisonous. But every now and then, nature offered something extraordinary. Cannabis was one of those rare discoveries. At first, people almost certainly valued it for reasons that had nothing to do with getting high. Its seeds were rich in nutrition. Its fibers were incredibly strong. Its stalks could be woven into cloth. Its oil could be extracted for practical uses. Imagine discovering one plant that could help feed your family, make your clothes, produce rope strong enough to pull heavy loads, and continue growing year after year. To ancient farmers, this wasn't just another crop. It was a survival tool. As villages became towns and towns became civilizations, cannabis quietly spread with them. Not because kings ordered it. Not because armies carried it. Because ordinary people found it useful. Merchants packed seeds alongside grain. Travelers introduced it to new settlements. Families passed down knowledge from one generation to the next. Long before the Silk Road officially connected East and West, ideas and plants were already moving across continents. Cannabis was one of them. Ancient China became one of the earliest places where the plant was deeply woven into everyday life. Farmers cultivated hemp for fiber. Craftsmen turned those fibers into ropes, fishing nets, clothing, and eventually paper. Traditional healers also began recording cannabis among the many plants used in herbal medicine. Whether every ancient remedy truly worked is impossible to know. But one thing is difficult to ignore. People kept using the plant for centuries. Civilizations rarely preserve traditions that offer no benefit. Then something unexpected happened. Some groups discovered that not every cannabis plant was the same. Certain varieties produced unusual effects when heated. The smoke altered perception, changed mood. It transformed ceremonies. Instead of rejecting those effects, many ancient cultures embraced them. One of the oldest pieces of archaeological evidence comes from high in the mountains of Central Asia. Researchers excavating ancient cemeteries found wooden braziers containing burned stones. Chemical analysis revealed traces of cannabis. These people weren't accidentally burning weeds. They had intentionally selected plants containing higher levels of psychoactive compounds than those growing naturally nearby. That detail changes everything. It suggests ancient people weren't simply using whatever nature provided. They were already choosing specific plants for specific purposes. Imagine standing on a cold mountain slope 25 centuries ago. Night has fallen. A funeral is taking place. Family members gather around heated stones. Cannabis is placed onto the rocks. Smoke slowly rises into the freezing air. Prayers are spoken. Memories are shared. Whether they believed the smoke carried messages to the dead or helped the living cope with grief, we cannot know for certain. But archaeology tells us the ritual happened. Sometimes the ground remembers what history forgets. Not long afterward, a Greek traveler named Herodotus described meeting nomadic horse warriors known as the Scythians. He watched as they built small enclosed tents, heated stones until they glowed, and threw cannabis onto them. The space quickly filled with thick smoke. According to his account, the participants shouted with joy. For generations, many historians assumed he had exaggerated. Then, more than 2,000 years later, archaeologists excavated frozen Scythian tombs preserved beneath Siberian ice. Inside they discovered ceremonial tents, heating stones, and cannabis remains that closely matched Herodotus' description. One of history's strangest stories turned out to be remarkably accurate. The same plant that comforted mourners in one culture held together ships in another. The same fibers woven into everyday clothing were also helping explorers cross dangerous oceans. Few plants have ever served so many different purposes. And yet, despite thousands of years of usefulness, the greatest transformation in cannabis history had not yet begun. That transformation wouldn't be caused by nature. It wouldn't be caused by science. It would be caused by people. And it would completely change the way much of the world viewed a plant that had quietly accompanied humanity since the dawn of civilization.